Battlefield 6 has been tearing it up, smashing records, clocking 700,000 concurrent players, accelerating it to the top spot amongst the other games in the franchise. Of course, we'll have to let some time pass before we decide our full opinion on this, but so far it seems the devs are making a game people want? A rare phenomenon in modern gaming. It makes me wonder though, how could a game doing all the right things have only recently been known as a game that didn't? A game that not only didn't deliver, but briefly tarnished its reputation. Today, we'll dive into the previous entries, deciphering what made them work and assessing the journey Battlefield took to get where it is today. So, what happened to Battlefield? Hey, what do you call guests that you invite over to your house and then they're just really rude and don't put their drink on a coaster and leave one of them little rings? You know what I call that? Bad company. Also, remember this? That Battlefield game where they printed gamer tags onto the cover art? Well, this was a pretty good game. Released in 2010, Bad Company 2 sits at the top of many pure Battlefield fans' ranking lists, most notably for a few things such as its destructible environments. Check out Africa Harbour before and after a gunfight and notice the impact of battle. Emphasis on squad-based gameplay with more focused weapons, forcing you to optimise weapon or character development, and rush, as a lot of the maps in Bad Company 2 were designed specifically for this mode. The matches felt tense and both teams had to endure the struggle, in a good way. There's a chance nostalgia plays a part when reminding ourselves of this one. Perhaps it was the time we got it that was so special, or that the door to this Bad Company series was slammed shut before EA had a chance to ruin it with a third or a fourth one. DICE have since been on record saying they don't know why the Bad Company games are so beloved, and don't know what they'd do to recreate it. This sentiment speaks volumes and highlights the disconnect between player and developer. Luckily for them, the installments that followed were well received and armoured up the franchise to be an anticipated mainstay, at least for a few years. For some reason, I instantly think of Metro when Battlefield 3 enters the chat. Not only the map, but the mission early in the game where you Ethan Hunt across the top of a train. I also think about the distorted dubstep bassy music that complemented the aesthetic very well actually. There was just something about this one. The whole package of it. DICE really rolled themselves on this direction shift and got sixes. The itch of my teenage ambition to be part of an explosive battle zone from the comfort of my bedroom was scratched. Bullets flying past my head, explosions ripping apart my surroundings, loud and exciting. It was next level. The maps were great. At this point they had developed a formula for what was to come. Battlefield 3 was a hit, setting records for EA's biggest launch with 5 million copies sold in the first week. No, the campaign wasn't tremendous, and the multiplayer is what people remember more fondly, but watching that gameplay reveal was pure hype. The insane graphics, the sound design, that building crumbling down at the end of the mission. I miss those days. Anyone hear that? Got it. Battlefield 4 was buggy at launch. I remember running frantically around the streets of Shanghai wondering where exactly it is I should be going. Of course, the game had just bugged out on me, and reverting to the last save took me back far enough I decided just to try again later. Crashing, glitches, lag, the trifecta of modern day botched game launches. It wasn't a strong start. However, after ironing out these errors, it was clear to see that they took what was good about Battlefield 3 and expanded on it. So when it was smoothened out, there was plenty of fun to have here. There are still dedicated players to this very day, 12 years later, with great maps and large-scale battles, levolution like the collapse of the Shanghai Tower which collectively dropped our jaws the first time we experienced it, and insane graphics for its time, even compared to some games released recently. Much like 3, the campaign wasn't extraordinary either. However, in my opinion, the opening footage from the gameplay reveal once again entertained me thoroughly at the time and injected me with hype. There is a lot of debate as to whether this is the best game in the franchise. The sheer duration of its lifespan lends to that. Some say 3 deserves that title. What do you think? Okay, they did something different here. Didn't expect it, wasn't totally upset by it. Hardline is a divisive entry in the franchise with a departure from large-scale battles and the military-esque war-style approach the games usually focus on. The game suffered from a slight identity crisis, dipping its fingers into 2 different pies without fully committing to either. A classic Battlefield framework and mechanics with a cops and robbers twist. This of course fragmented the community, splitting between players who liked the change and those who didn't. Nowadays I couldn't imagine a game company taking a risk like that, so I give DICE props for trying something new, but completely respect how others could be confused or put off by it. This game didn't have the staying power like its predecessors, but does possess a good amount of redeeming qualities such as polished gunplay and a clean, focused, thrilling crime campaign, albeit melodramatic at times.
Nah. not a word.
It is not an objectively bad entry, but definitely a preference. DICE ventured into World War I and II with their next entries. 2016 saw Battlefield 1 enter the market alongside Infinite Warfare, a highly ridiculed Call of Duty game awarded an anti-accolade for its severe trailer dislike ratio. With COD at the time facing a decline in popularity for its futuristic setting and a campaign set in space, the stars aligned for Battlefield 1 as it offered the opposite experience with boots on the ground classic 1900s action. While this helped, it wasn't the only reason people stuck around to play it. Battlefield 1 was actually really solid. Some would say the best rendition of a World War I online shooter we've had, and the game has a dedicated player base even now. The destruction of the blimp, crumbling into the dirt leaving debris while it ominously rained the heavens down upon you, crawling through the mud while a firefight ensues across the wreckage, hearing bullets whistle past your head, not sure if you should stay still or bolt to avoid certain death. Battlefield always had a knack for a cinematic war experience, and BF1 was no exception. I honestly have very little to say about Battlefield 5. It wasn't a game I spent much time with, although from research I can see the consensus improved over time, as initially I wasn't seeing a great deal of positive response from it. The scenery and game design gets a lot of praise, and by looking at the screenshots of in-game footage from players, I can see why. For the most part, graphics and visuals have never been an issue when dealing with this franchise. The deeper I dug, the more love I would uncover for the actual gameplay. And I didn't mention the historical inaccuracy complaints for Battlefield 1, but 5 seemed to suffer a lot of controversy for it, hurting the immersion factor of the game for a lot of people. Tell me your thoughts on this one down below. It had been 3 years since Battlefield 5, and finally, in 2021, we got a trailer for the next Battlefield, 2042. By this point, a lot of people had checked out, myself included, so to see this back to formula Battlefield game was exciting. The trailer got us pretty damn hyped. It featured classic Battlefield cinematic action, updated and upgraded, with a new weather system that would influence online matches with tornadoes and sandstorms wiping out players across maps. It was downright epic. DICE knew what players were after, so it seemed.
Stop! Grab it, Pat! Grab it! Hurry! Hurry! No, Pat! No, no! Get it, Pat! Get it! Get it! Get it! Get it! Get it! Get it! No!
One of the worst game launches to date. Battlefield 2042 was jam-packed with bugs, maps wouldn't load properly, the game did not feel like an upgrade on the previous entries, the maps were very poorly designed, resulting in boring gameplay. When it would even work, the game didn't launch with a scoreboard. Not kidding. With anticipation so high for a game from developers who appeared to understand what players wanted, it came as a mighty blow to us and the reputation of Battlefield itself with how far they missed the target. As expected, the numbers began dropping as players abandoned the game, and the fate of the franchise was being held up by strings. Time is said to heal all wounds, and as is common for bad game launches, they eventually patched up some issues and managed to retain a player base, but the damage was done. By that point, Battlefield had a stain on them that could only be buffed out by the perfect follow-up. And 4 years later, 2025, with the release of Battlefield 6, did they succeed? Time will tell, but for now the reception between the two games is night and day. The question is though, how did this happen? I think we know who to blame. DICE and EA wanted Battlefield 2042 to reinvent the series as a massive, futuristic, live service shooter that could rival games like Warzone, emphasizing freedom, spectacle, and a flexible classless system built around specialists. But in chasing trends and scale, they lost what made Battlefield great: teamwork, balance, and immersion. I'm curious about Battlefield 6's lifespan. Will it finally let Battlefield 4 fade off into a peaceful rest and maintain a dedicated player base for years to come, being held as one of the greats? Or will we be watching the Battlefield 7 trailer around the time Black Ops 10 drops? Let me know your thoughts on this franchise in the comments. Which entries were your favourites and least favourites? What do you think of Battlefield 6? Thank you for watching, and please sub for positive KD in Conquest. Bye!
Consider the subscribe button as your primary objective. Press it.